back to Wild Speculations. We apparently are on the internet. I couldn't tell. Sorry about that. This week, we're talking about Exandria Unlimited, Calamity, Episode 4, the finale, Fire and Ruin.
Correct.
There
was a lot in this.
Yeah. 6 hours, 7 minutes runtime.
Yeah.
Which kind of pissed me off. And it's been a running theme in Brennan's tenure. All of his episodes are long in this arc. And I think in large part it's due to the differences in the way that they produce their shows. Dimension 20 cuts their episodes down to something like an hour, roundabout, and they put them out. And they shoot intro, exit separately.
Gotcha.
And I would say that they shoot their show more traditionally for TV. They'll shoot until they're done. They cut out what they don't want. They have individual cameras on everybody, so it's easier for them to go to a one-shot of people. The production is way different than Critical.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to say something that's going to be controversial.
Okay.
So prepare yourselves. Here it is. Bria was a better guest DM than Bran.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because she respected the form of the show more than he did. I think his story was better. I think it was more engaging, I think.
Okay.
She had the uphill task of essentially giving us a prequel for Campaign 3 for 3 of the characters.
Yeah.
I think the stuff that she's done there is showing up in Campaign 3.
Mm-hmm.
Probably more than what Brennan did is going to show up.
Right.
It's just, especially this last episode, was so much of why I bounce off of so much of Dimension 20 stuff. And I don't know, so most of it's going to come back to how long everything took. And that this was a 6-hour episode. And so much of Dimension 20 sometimes does feel that way. But I think Dimension 20 cuts around it.
Gotcha.
So it tightens up some of the stuff that Brennan can, as he's formulating the words maybe, or because at the beginning of the episode, when they come back from the intro, it's rare that we catch it, but the wall of sound that they give to Matt.
Yeah.
And Brennan, acting like a substitute teacher, is like, when you're finished. And he's like, oh, we haven't started yet. And it's like, the camera people in the stream beg to differ, my friend. We've started. And it's that kind of thing that they would cut out of a Dimension 20
Gotcha.
production. So, yeah. But the shocking thing off the bat is it took 30 minutes to resolve the sundering of the tree.
To resolve approximately 1 second.
Yes.
And it wasn't even combat.
No. I mean, it kind of was, but also not.
I like the comment he made, though. This is like the drawn-out version of rolling damage for a fireball.
Yeah. Oh, and I got that. I don't see why it had to take 30 minutes. It's 5 minutes a player. There were no bad guys.
Yeah.
And like, my hat was off to Marisha, because as soon as she got the instructions of what was happening, she was done.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, we'll start with you. And it's like, I don't know. It's as fast as she got it done, it boggles my brain why it took that long to do it. And again, it comes down to, I think on Dimension 20, they would have cut through all that. They would have cut all that out. It would have been Brennan telling them what's going on, and then they would have gone to a one shot of each person telling him the result of their roles.
Yeah.
I
mean,
I don't know.
Like, I don't know. I was okay with that section of the. Honestly, there wasn't any part of it that made me feel like,
dragging.
Yeah.
I don't think it didn't drag for me either, really. It was all pretty engaging. But I don't know, it shows a view of the audience and his players, who are his audience as well. And Sam even mentioned it last episode, mentioned it this episode. Can't we just go to another episode?
Yeah.
And Snoopy, I think, it would have been better to make this 2 episodes. The problem is, he didn't go to break till almost 3 hours in. And I think where Abria played with them before she GM'd, and she was a fan of the show, so she'd already watched it. I don't think Brennan watches their show very much. I think he's friends enough with Matt, and Brennan is a good enough writer and DM that Matt will bounce ideas off of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he may know things that the players don't know that are coming up because of that. But I don't think because Matt and Abria both are watching the timer.
Yeah.
And it's time to go to break here. Brennan bases his breaks on, we're going to get to this in this first half, and we're going to get to this in the second half. And again, it comes back to that difference in production speed and what he does on his show and Matt and them do on their show. And it, like, Kevin Smith talks about how when he was invited to direct an episode of The Flash, his first DC TV directorial thing, that he was shocked and excited and all this stuff because, they're giving him a chance. And he's like, I didn't want to screw it up, but once I got there, I realized I just got to sit back and let these people do their job. He wasn't coming in there, and he was worried they were expecting him to come in there and put his stamp on it.
Yeah.
And they weren't, and he was like, oh, okay. And he did the same thing with Supergirl, where Brennan I'm going to put my stamp on this. This is going to be my product, not yours. That could just be me looking in from the outside. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's viewing the whole of this.
I will say I've not really watched anything he's run, but I didn't get that feeling. I mean, I just got the feeling like he had 4 episodes to do. He talked with Matt about his art, and I think these last 2 were longer because they didn't get to where he needed him to be in the first couple. And he just crammed this story, that's how I took it. I didn't have the issue that you evidently have. So
this could also be an example of we hate what we see in others of ourselves. And I also am not, we've talked about this before, I also am not good at keeping my one-shots tight.
Yeah. Me either. I always...
So, it could be some of that. But, I don't know. The one thing
Snoopy, I don't think it was planned to be 2. I think it was always set up to be 4 episodes.
Yeah.
I think just the pacing at the beginning of the 4 episodes was slower than he anticipated, and they had more stuff that they had to put in the last 2. Because it did feel,
maybe.
To me, it felt the first couple of episodes did feel like there was a lot of being scattered and...
Well, part of that was them splitting the party.
Yeah.
And they paid the price for some of that in this episode.
Well, I mean...
When Nidus went back and got stabbed in the back and then realized, oh, your taxman had been tampered with.
Yeah. But at the same time, splitting the party is...
yeah, the only way to do things, yeah. And
it's an inevitability.
Yeah.
No matter how many cliches there are about not splitting the party.
And everyone always splits the party in town.
Oh, yeah. And this whole thing was in a town.
Yeah. Yeah. Their hometown, in fact. And, yeah, Rose, I fell asleep during the live show and rewatched it last night in its entirety. And then we always have it on when we're show prepping.
Yeah. For
the show today. Now, usually we can get through a whole episode during show prep. I was like, that's not happening today. Are there any places you want to, parts you want to rewatch?
And, and I'll be honest, I may not have had as visceral a reaction to the length of the show because, like I told you, just because of my schedule this past week, I was not able to sit down and watch the whole thing in one sitting. I watched the whole thing at least twice before our show prep, but it was segments here, segments there.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah. Like I say, it was a beautiful story, told really well. It was very affecting. And the only reason I bring it up now is because it's the end. And I just wanted to bring it up as part of comparing Brennan's run to Abria's run.
Yeah.
And to show my appreciation for Abria's respect for their format.
Okay.
But this episode had a lot of mechanical errors. Like, we talked about a couple of them last time, and there wasn't a whole lot of mechanical stuff happening in the first 2 episodes.
Right.
But this one had several.
Yeah.
And the first one is while they are resolving what happened as the tree gets sundered. And it was Xerxes telling them, you have advantage on the roll, even though they should not have.
What is your reasoning for they should not have, and what is the reasoning for advantage on the roll that he gave?
Because he believed his aura gave them advantage when it was one of his abilities. But silvery barbs.
I don't think it was silvery barbs because that
So-
only gives one person advantage one time.
They were doing silvery barbs incorrect as I read the spell.
I think they asked about it incorrectly a couple of times. I don't remember them actually ever doing it.
No, because their conclusion and the way that it was treated was it gives you disadvantage on the roll. And that's not what the spell says. The spell says they have to roll again and take the lesser.
Mhm.
That's different from giving them disadvantage. And that's an important wording because otherwise the rogue doesn't get a sneak attack.
It's true.
And if these tests had advantage, the reroll should also have advantage, as I read it.
Okay.
Because they are making the roll again. And that means it didn't happen, do it again. Between these two results, you will take the lower one. So, yeah. But yeah, it was his aura.
Yeah, I agree. There were some, I mean, we talk about not backseat DMing here. And mistakes happen. Mistakes happen in our games.
Malamute, when we get to that part, I have some views on what happened with Saret's last attack. But
yeah,
we'll get there. But one of the things that sort of triggered me especially in the show prep, like when I'm watching, the first time I was watching it, like I said, it was very affecting, except for the fact that this portion that took about 20 minutes of Brennan asking them, what's your expression as you die? And it's sadness and melancholy here and this, and it's all BS. If you're being blown apart, your only expression is shock, horror, and pain. That's the face you have when you die. And I just and prepping for the show tonight, I was like, this took 20 fucking minutes? Why? Especially when he knew they had the resources to undo it.
Yeah.
Now I can understand. It is a great way to get players. Like, so much good that Brennan did in this one shot, this short campaign, that was great for a new player, was great. He's asking him for their expressions, not for their internal monologue. He's, and he actually made the main character the new player, which is helpful.
Yeah.
If the player is willing to be the spotlight, as it were. But the best part of the episode was, in my opinion, right after resolving who's dead, who's not, the time stopped, and Xerxes and Asmodeus.
That was a really good moment. Xerxes had a Moses moment, as I like to put it.
I mean, there's a reason the devil is...
I say that in the fact that Moses supposedly wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, and in there he says that Moses was the most humble man on the face of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that he wrote that kind of counteracts the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anytime anyone gets to play the devil, it's usually good.
And, he made a great case for the betrayer gods.
Yeah.
I mean, really, the betrayer gods are the ones who didn't betray. All the gods made a deal with the primordials. And then they started creating mortals.
Well, as he said
the
last time,
prime deities are the ones who betrayed the covenant that they made, the deal they made for their creation. The betrayer gods are the ones who said, no, let's keep our word.
Yeah.
And
I want him to be the purest him. And then, I didn't do anything wrong. And then Xerxes, you're no god, you're a child. And then him saying, I pity him. And he's like, oh, he loses his shit. He goes crazy.
Yeah.
And him telling Xerxes, you're worse than the Dawnfather.
Yeah.
At least
he's more humble.
Yeah. Yeah. And his whole thing where you believe my wars with them. They're my siblings. You did this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Travis realizing, oh, we just saw the first vestige of divergence be made.
Yep.
It was so good. And like Travis always gets shit for not remembering anything. But of everyone at the table, he's been the first one to realize what's going on. Lewis did a great job. I'm unsure about the end, though. But we'll get to that. But yeah, I did love I'm gonna redeem the devil. As it were. Which kind of makes you wonder, like, did he have any of that with Evandrin? Like, I'm going to fix this guy. The chronic, I'll fix you kind of thing. And yeah, Malamute, the ripping of the face off, the body horror section.
Yeah.
Again, that's why I say that this, for me, was the best part of the episode. Because the cool stuff that happens later is more of a denouement.
Yeah.
For me. The culmination of everything. We get the first real... Bell's Hells, yeah, for sure. God. Oh. Which makes me want, like, I do. We talked about this very early on in this little mini series that could any of them show up in the next arc? Like we know we've got was it Erica?
Erica.
Yeah.
Ishii
is our guest for this current arc, but the next one maybe. So yeah, having Bell's Hells meet Xerxes the Fallen would be great. But the first knife twist of the episode for me was Maya and Kier. When Seret goes to them and he's trying to get them to leave.
Yeah.
And they're like, Dad, what's with your ring? And Brennan interrupted Travis to tell him that his ring is glowing when he tells them everything's fine.
Yeah.
And then he lies again to say what the ring does. Which brings up an interesting, like, family life dynamic that's sort of unspoken in that moment, which is presumably their home never had lies in it, even little white lies.
Or he didn't always wear his ring at home. He could have worn it just during work.
The impression that I got from that whole bit of him starting the fire in his office was that he wore it all the time.
I mean, it's possible.
But to me, that was the biggest sort of, oh wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Part of that is, or his children knew that it did something, but not necessarily exactly what.
Or that was their way of calling their dad out on his lies. Like, we know we're not lying. Why is your ring glowing, Dad?
Yeah. Yeah. And that was almost the way Brennan was playing Kier in the moment. So, yeah. Interesting thing that we may never get an answer to. And I think that was the hardest moment for Sam in the episode. Because he was all, funny, haha, dick jokes just a minute before.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about he's going to sully your scene and ruin it with his dick jokes. And now he is seeing the same kind of thing that played out on 9/11. People in that tower calling their friends and family. That he had friends and family.
Yeah.
Because he was in New York. Him and his wife were taking pictures as it was happening.
Yeah.
And like he talked about it on Between the Sheets.
Yeah. And so did she when they did her.
Yeah.
His wife.
And I don't know, I could see it was affecting him.
Yeah.
And then the twist of like the knife going in was talking to his children, telling them the white lie, breaking the thing. The twist of the knife was Brennan and even Travis is like, dude, that's not. You solved the mystery of your children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was harder than anything that happened later in the episode. And, getting back to Luis, embracing the flaws of his character, redeeming or reaching out to redeem Vespin. And the result of that being Vespin editing the contract and delaying it and giving him time.
Mm-hmm.
Was a great touch.
I just love the backwards irony of Vespin using all those counter spells when in campaign 1 he was done in by counterspell. He even used a 9th level counterspell at one point. Brennan says he does counterspell at 9th level.
No, that was Asmodeus.
Oh, that was Asmodeus, that's right.
Yeah.
But just, Vespin used counterspell several times.
Yeah.
And just the fact that later Scanlan would be his undoing with multiple counterspells in that fight. It's like, should have seen it coming, buddy.
Well, Sam also showed hey, I'm the big dog still at this table when it comes to planning stuff out 3 turns ahead.
Yeah.
When he's like, I'm going to hold a healing word. And then it goes off and Travis is like, Sam! Yeah. But Luis asks for a nudge from the DM. The DM gives it. Go to the Hall of Prophecy. Go to the oracles.
Yeah.
Where they receive the, if you don't do this, everything will end and it will be forever bad. Prophecy. We get a moment of reflection from Pesha.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the reveal of Eldemir's abuse of her. Would you call it abuse? I mean, I don't think it's a stretch to refer to it as such.
No, I completely think it is. And in some ways on the worst level, mental, emotional.
Yeah.
And the fact that I don't think it wasn't really outright said, but it's implied that, like, because she never goes and gets the whole story about her parents, but it's implied that, like, her parents
were disappointment,
and he modified her memories, them out of her memories, so that he could make her the worthy successor.
Which kind of makes you wonder what happened to them.
Yeah.
And if he modified their memories so they wouldn't come back.
Yeah. Or worse.
Yeah.
You know? And is some lingering trauma from that experience why she's so flippant with the use of modified memory?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Which goes back to that ethical question we asked about modified memory when she was using it.
Even on somebody that asks you for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can I just say, I know we spent a lot of time on that first 20 minutes, but one of the best scenes in the episode for me was just the imagery and the sound effects that Brennan used in describing her losing her half of her arm and it just being pulled out of the socket. And like, as someone who has major joint issues with joints dislocating, like, I felt that to my core, that scene. I could feel it pulling apart, you know, as he described it.
I have never, at least I don't think I have, ever told a player, you want to fail this test.
Right.
And as a player, I've never been told that until after the fact. It was good that you failed that test, because if you hadn't, this would have happened, and it was much worse than what you were going through.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm glad I failed it then. So that was interesting. And basically remove all ambiguity. What part of your arm do you think you're going to lose? Because you're going to lose some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although they didn't carry that forward after her revivify.
Yeah.
It wasn't pointed out or in any way that she's still missing her arm. Which, by my reading, she would be.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I think they should have too, Snoopy. But we have Nidus's betrayal.
Yep.
Going back to the Golden Scythe, right? And this is where I say this is probably something that he planned to happen earlier in one of those early episodes, is for them to investigate how the Hadmadad collapsed.
Yeah.
And if they had, perhaps they would have made that last battle easier.
Yep.
But they didn't. So here we are. But in his epic takedown of his subordinate, we have our second major mechanical error.
Okay.
Nidus casting hold person while he is concentrating on the dragon.
Yeah.
The dragon should have gone away. So, but it's one of those things that the character probably doesn't think about in the moment.
Yeah.
And the DM doesn't say, "Oh, that would drop."
Yeah,
the
I mean,
dragon.
it's easy to lose track of that.
Yeah.
Especially in, a pivotal or emotional moment in the game.
Yeah.
So.
But it allowed the scene to finish faster. So.
Yeah.
I'm not that mad at it in the grand scheme of things. Because, anything at this point that it increases the probability of brevity is better.
Mm-hmm.
The next biggest moment is Loquacious's broadcast. And him being given the choice to return to the Feywild.
Mm-hmm.
A review of his lie, of his burying the truth, which I was sort of, like, in the moment, I was like, okay. And on rewatch, it kind of made me mad. Because part of me is, it's Brennan and or Sam, but mostly Brennan, because he's the one that pointed it out. It's the same sin that a lot of writers have.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I wrote this. You're gonna fucking read it. We wrote this. We have to be expressed with it.
Yeah.
It can't be subtext, because we got that happened.
Mm-hmm.
In just a little bit that we had. I don't know. But would he have abandoned his pen the way that he did had Brennan not done that? Probably not. And that made that sequence better. Like, from a storytelling perspective, it did.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It was one of those things that I prefer subtext to text. I don't need it shoved in my face.
Yeah.
And that was the only downside of that scene for me. But he had the betrayal of the Circle of Gold.
Yeah.
By putting him in the Wall of Force and trapping him there. You'll be okay. And then going on, rallying the city.
Yep.
Changing the fate of hundreds, because he made, like Brennan pointed out, by keeping all of the people, all the administrators here, not only do you keep the big boats of the guild available for people to evacuate on, all of the smaller craft, all of the rugs, all the stuff that those people would have used to escape were given over for other people to escape on.
Yep.
And also, a interesting moment, and it gets back at what I keep saying in all the discussions about game masters fudging dice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't roll. Brennan didn't ask for a role.
Yeah.
Because Sam had been writing that whole spiel.
Yeah. Like you said.
Since almost the beginning of the episode, it seemed
like you said in the moment, sometimes the game calls for a dice roll when there's chance. Sometimes you don't need to call for the roll because the player gives you a nat 20.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that. If someone does a good enough job explaining what they're like, okay, it's going to work, you know?
Yeah.
I may not say that's a nat 20, it's going to resolve. Like, I'm going to say, hey, that's going to work.
Yeah. Well, and ending it with the ad read.
Yeah.
For Mercer's Inks. So he got both of his game masters in it.
Yep.
In his ad reads. So yeah, it was, and that was also one of Travis's moments of like, God damn, like, why are you so good at Sam? Which is why, like, for me, Sam was MVP this episode. Like we talk about moving the plot forward, I don't necessarily consider Luis to be that.
No.
He was involved in all the stuff that was happening, but like this was like, you know, Infinity War was Thanos' movie. This
Right.
was Asmodeus' episode.
Yeah.
But Sam saving all those extra people,
Mm-hmm.
His clutch healing word at the end.
Yep.
And giving, I mean, it didn't necessarily affect mechanically Sirit's escape, but here's the my talisman.
Yeah.
If you get less than a 30, you can roll a d4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Travis is my runner-up for the principal reason of what happens next, which is when Xerxes goes down to see his son.
Mm-hmm.
And Travis says, I am going to follow him.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, we're going to get Santa Claus. And I'm waiting.
Maybe Krampus.
I'm waiting for a moment in your game that's going to happen with my character too. Where it's going to be. Might have to kill a PC. Don't know who, don't know when. I just have a feeling that it's going to happen.
It may be coming sooner than you think.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about it.
I
have one player sitting next to me and one watching on stream. That's all I'm going to say about it.
I mean, it's just built into the character. I mean, we talked about, do you have to do bad things to get taken by the mist? Well, I know what he did, or what he's willing to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was, yeah.
Sorry, Snoopy.
But Sirit has a moment with his son, forgives him for not sending the spell kite, which of course the Redemption Paladin is going to do.
Yeah.
And his griffin drops a feather to his son, which comes up at the end of them reuniting with his father. Him commanding the fiends to lay down your arms, to disarm.
Mm-hmm.
Which Brennan's like, your voice is not carried upwards. And that's when Asmodeus is hip to the fact that, oh, this has been edited. Well, fine. Do what you want with your last few minutes.
Yeah.
But we get to the last 3 rounds. And I joked about how I forgot how long combat can take at level 14. But these 3 rounds were kind of ridiculous. First round was 27 minutes. Round 2 was 32 minutes. And round 3 was 18 minutes. And generally, as your combatants shrink, it gets shorter. And we didn't really get, I guess we kind of did, but.
Yeah.
But to what Malamute mentioned earlier, the reaction errors. And Saret's killing of I have him Vecna in my notes.
Vespin.
Vespin, thank you. Which in the moment when Travis narrated him hitting him in the temple and then pulling the eye out, I was like, oh, the eye of Vecna.
Yeah.
But no, they didn't do that. It's like, what a missed opportunity.
Right? So if that's not the eye of Vecna, does that mean that Vecna's blind?
No, I think the hand and eye are artifacts that he will produce on his quest to become a god. And to get him out from underneath Asmodeus. Like, that's his goal in the end.
Yeah.
And I think those items that he produces and leaves are how he's going to do that. And that will come about during, the century or 2 centuries.
Yeah.
The calamity. So it makes sense that it didn't happen right then and there, but I was like, oh, that's such a missed opportunity.
Right.
But I also love it that it's Travis again.
Yeah. I would have loved it if he popped the eye out and Brennan would be like, okay, make a wisdom save. Oh, you failed? You want to put the eye in?
But because Travis last time they faced this guy, or next time, however you want to look at it,
it's all wibbly wobbly.
The last time that we had an almost 6-hour episode, as Melanie pointed out, Travis used Mage Slayer on Grog to hit him and to place, and he's the one that placed the last trammel.
Yes, Vespin is Vecna's original name. Vespin Chloris becomes Vecna. Yeah.
Canonically, there have been 2 people to ascend. One of them is the Raven Queen, and one of them is Vecna. And Vespin is his mortal name. And he, in dialogue, he actually hints at what happens, because he said, I didn't want to be forgotten.
Yeah.
But Vecna becomes the god of secrets. And so his name is Secret.
Yes. It's a Tom Riddle Voldemort type.
Yeah. And Vecna, the name Vecna, is actually an anagram of Vance.
Yeah. Fred Vantian Magic, Robert Vance? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that wrote the...
where Vancian magic comes from. So it's already an anagram. So Vespin is just Exandria's version of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We have, and then Seret escapes with his 31.
Yep.
Which, the first roll of the campaign was done by Travis. And I think it was a perception check or investigation.
Perception.
He rolled a 31. The last roll of the campaign is an investigation check, and he rolled a 31.
Yep.
It's almost
like the dice nun.
Like the dice nun, but like it reminds me of why the Mighty Nine called themselves the Mighty Nine, and it's because they all kept rolling 9s, either on the D20 in the damage it just kept coming up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just funny. Of
course, their escaping leaves open, some possibilities for sequels.
Yeah.
Set during the Calamity. He could repurpose the Ring of Brass, and they could go out trying to mitigate the damage of all these things, because it's hinted that that this is not the only place that this is happening.
Right.
That other gods are pulling these shenanigans in other cities.
Yeah, well, and Asmodeus, when he comes through, when he leaves the city, he's going to Vasselheim.
Yeah.
Or he goes to Gordranus first to collect his sibling.
Yes.
And then let's go to Vasselheim and arrest his ship.
Yeah, this is when, Gordranus becomes Gordranus.
Yeah.
Becomes the Vasselheim of the Betrayer gods.
Yeah.
To later become Rosanna.
Yeah. And he even said that
it's another good one. Yeah, that's another sequel they could do is the Circle's kids coming of age. Xerxes' kid, Maya or
Kier. Yeah,
I still want to. What I really want, a whole new party, and it centers around the Blood War, and they have 2 guest stars, and they have to side with one and fight the other, and it's either Lewis as Xerxes or Joe Manganiello as Archon. And which side are they going to fight on? So the other one becomes the BB, one becomes the group's patron, the other becomes the group's big bad end guy.
Yeah, it would be great.
That would be, I know that that's not probably logistically possible, unless, Joe runs it.
Well, no, it could be possible with Bell's Hells.
But that's what I want to see. I want to see a party have to decide between Archon and Xerxes.
Yeah.
Because they're set up to be on the opposite sides of the Blood War. Generals on opposite sides of the Blood War.
Yeah, and they're going to choose Xerxes because he's the one that didn't betray them. But yeah, I don't. So here's where I said that we'll get back to Lewis's choice in the end.
Yeah.
Because I don't understand it.
What don't you understand? It's the heart of a redemption paladin. He believes that either he can be redeemed from whatever he comes back as, or he can redeem the unredeemable. And it's him putting his faith in that redemption, that ability to redeem.
But he kind of got his redemption, and he says, can he make an insight check? I took those hits. He triggered those hits, so he would go down. Nidus wants to kill him in the hopes that if he dies before the deal takes effect, he'll get to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And had that happened, his son or his husband might have been able to bring him back.
True.
I don't understand his choice to say, I'm going to keep with the deal. Although, Malamute does make a point, it is the only way to ensure the son survives any length of time.
It's that. It's, again, redeem the unredeemable. Nobody is beyond redemption. That's part of the tenets of a redemption paladin.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from the moment he saw Asmodeus, he wanted nothing but to save him. And if becoming his right hand gets him to be that bug in his ear, he's going to take it.
Yeah. I mean, they all were having fun with their deaths. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, they all went in knowing, they're probably all going to die.
Yeah. And I mean, you can say that he had, in a sense, he had a redemption, but I think when you're subjugated to be the champion of Asmodeus, any redemption you had prior to that is kind of out the window, and still got to be redeemed.
Fair. I don't know. Although maybe it gets back to what, the Lord of Hells was saying. He is the most proud person,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He's the Exandrian Moses I said at the beginning of the episode. He'll even tell you how humble he is.
As for future games in the Calamity, Matt has said that he has wanted to see stuff set in this time frame.
Yeah.
Right. And if it does well, Abria got a second bite at the apple.
Yep.
I don't see why Brennan doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And concerning the fan base seems to have claimed this as a favorite.
Yes, I mean, I think overall, I saw less negative from him than to Abria. So yeah.
Yeah. And
which is also why I wanted to point out that I think Abria made a better guest.
I still believe a big part of that is Abria is the first
to do it.
Canon DM to DM something canon.
Yeah.
For Critical Role, and that threw a lot of people off.
I mean, yeah, Brennan does have the advantage that anything that he got wrong can be swept away as it's legends and did it happen that way or didn't it? One thing I wanted to touch on, and we can do it real quick before the end. Brennan didn't use Matt's resurrection rolls.
Nope.
And I thought that was interesting. Because is that a function of the Age of Arcanum? That the gods are still here, so it just happens? Or is it something Brennan knew these people were facing death so much that he had to let them come back?
Sure, either one. Honestly, I think he just didn't have Match resurrect. I mean, he probably knows about them, but he probably didn't have them down, and he just went with what he knows.
That's fair. He also didn't ask for components, so
yeah.
Yeah, I think the Calamity is an interesting time to play in, and
I agree, Rose. That was the excitement.
I think we could possibly see it, and it may not be Brennan to do it. In fact, it may be Matt.
Yeah.
Or Travis, since we see evidence that Travis is boning up on all of his vestiges of Divergence knowledge.
Yeah. I'd love to see Liam run one. I love Liam as a DM.
Well, and of the cast, Liam is the most giddy to go there.
Yeah.
And sort of deal with, death or the inevitability of things that kind of. He's
maybe if he runs one, we'll get some of that lore dump from that book Caleb found that Matt said I'll text you, and we never got the lore from.
Because Aor survives for a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be interesting. At any rate, this Thursday is Mauritius one shot.
The sprinkle one shot.
Yes. We won't be covering that. We're going to take a day off.
And we'll be back the following Tuesday to cover the new episode of Campaign 3.
Yep. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, everybody.
Bye.